You have tidied this house before. Probably more than once. And somewhere between 3 weeks and 3 months later, it went back to exactly what it was, which almost always gets blamed on discipline, and almost never on the objects themselves. These are 10 Japanese household items, most of which have quietly fallen out of use, even in Japan. What connects them isn't that they're minimal. Each one does 2 or 3 jobs, so the things that used to do those jobs separately stop being necessary, and every object you drop is also a small daily decision you stop making. That's where clutter actually lives, not on the counter. One of the 10 costs nothing at all. You already own everything you need for it. Number 1 is a thin piece of cotton. The bath towel is a design failure that we've all simply agreed to accept. It's thick, so it takes a day or more to dry. It sits damp on the rail. It starts to smell before it's actually dirty. So it goes in the wash more often than it should. And meanwhile, 4 of its siblings are occupying half a shelf in the linen cupboard. A tenugui is a thin rectangle of cotton, roughly the size of a hand towel, with the short ends left deliberately unhemmed. It dries in under an hour. Folded, it's the thickness of an envelope. The unhemmed ends look like a fault, and aren't. A hem is a double thickness of fabric, which is exactly the part of a towel that stays wet longest. Leave it off, and the cloth frays back to the weave, stops, and dries evenly across its whole surface. In a house, it takes over several jobs at once. Hand towel in the bathroom, cloth in the kitchen, the thing in your gym bag that isn't a damp brick by the time you get home. And there's a quieter effect. When a towel dries between uses, the laundry queue in your head disappears. The low-level tracking of what's clean, what's damp, when the wash is due. Go and look at whichever bathroom you use most. Swap the hand towel for a thin one and see whether you ever think about it again. Now for the one you'd never guess is a problem. The dirtiest object in most kitchens is the sponge, and the reason it stays there is that you cannot tell by looking. It's porous by design. It holds water, it holds food, and there is no moment at which it announces that it has crossed over. You replace it when you happen to remember. A tawashi is a stiff bundled scrubbing brush, usually a flattened oval that sits in your palm. The version most Japanese households know, the Kaminoko Tawashi, was patented in Tokyo in 1907 and has barely changed since. It solves the sponge problem by having no pores at all. Nothing lodges in it, it dries in about an hour, and one lasts most of a year rather than most of a month. It also scrubs harder, which matters on cast iron, wooden boards, and root vegetables where you want the skin left on. One thing worth knowing before you buy, because 2 very different products are sold under the same name. Traditional tawashi are made from shuro, the bark fiber of the windmill palm, which is surprisingly soft and won't mark coated or seasoned surfaces. Cheaper ones are coconut coir, which is considerably coarser. If you own non-stick or ceramic pans, that distinction is the whole purchase. The next one solves a problem you probably don't think of as a problem at all. You know the thing is in the bag. That's the maddening part. You're not lost, you're not disorganized, you simply cannot locate a set of keys inside a container you packed yourself, and you're doing it in front of someone. A Kinchaku is a small drawstring cotton pouch. That's the entire object, and they're usually sold in sets. The idea is a bag inside a bag, charging cables live in one, medicines in another, small tools in a third. You don't search the bag anymore, you pull out the pouch. The reason this belongs on a list about mental clutter, rather than a list about tidying, is that the cost was never the mess. Nobody suffers because a bag is untidy inside. They suffer because a 5-second search, repeated 8 times a day, is a small tax on attention that never quite gets noticed and never quite goes away. So what else in your house are you searching for daily and have decided is just how things are? How many doors in your home do you actually close? Take the one you walk through most, the kitchen doorway, or the entrance to whichever room you use during the day. The honest answer is probably never. And yet it's still there, taking up wall space, swinging into the room, requiring a free hand. A Noren is a fabric panel hung across a doorway, split vertically so you walk straight through it. Shops use them to signal they're open. Homes use them to divide without ceiling. It works because most rooms don't need a barrier, they need a signal. A Noren says, "This is a different space now," while leaving sightlines and airflow alone, and never needing to be opened. You carry a full tray through it. In a home where one room is doing 2 jobs, the desk in the corner of the living room, the kitchen visible from the sofa, the person trying to sleep while someone else is awake, a strip of cloth does most of what a wall would do, for a fraction of a percent of the cost, and you can take it down in 10 seconds if you are wrong. Hang one and the room stops reading as one space with an awkward corner. It starts reading as two small rooms that share air. This is the one that costs nothing. A Zokin is a cleaning cloth, made by folding a worn-out towel into quarters and running a few lines of stitching through it. That's all. In Japan, it's not a craft project. School children make them and use them because students clean their own classrooms, and the Zokin is the tool they do it with. What I find genuinely worth sitting with is the reasoning behind it. That towel dried you every day for 6 years. It's now too thin to dry anybody and too intact to throw away, which is why there's a stack of towels exactly like it in almost every linen cupboard in the world. The ones that are too worn to use and too fine to bin. They sit there for years because there is no category for them. The Zokin is the category. The towel doesn't get retired. It gets reassigned. That's what matainai actually means. And it isn't thrift. Thrift is about spending less. This is a refusal to let a thing end while it can still work. Practically, 4 layers, a few running stitches so it doesn't come apart in the wash, and you have a cloth thicker than a rag, more absorbent than paper towel, and free. It will not shed fibers the way a new microfiber cloth does. Go home tonight and there is a towel in your cupboard waiting for its second job. You've probably seen this next one, and that's exactly why it gets dismissed. A bento box is not a lunchbox. That's the mistranslation that makes people skip past it. A lunchbox is a container. One space, you fill it with whatever. A bento box is a set of fixed compartments, usually one large and 2 or 3 small, and the compartments are the entire invention. They decide the proportions before you decide anything. Grain fills the big one. Protein fills a small one. Vegetables fill what's left. You are not weighing, tracking, or making a nutritional judgment at 11 at night while hungry. This is the clearest example on the list of physical and mental clutter being the same problem. An open decision costs something small every time it's made, and the ones that repeat daily cost the most. What to pack, how much, whether it's enough. That's roughly 250 decisions a year. The box makes it once, permanently, in the shape of its own walls. Next time you pack a lunch, notice how much of the time goes into deciding rather than doing, whereas the next item does something you can taste. In a lot of Japanese kitchens, there's a black stick sitting in a jug of water on the counter. That's Binchotan. It's made from ubame oak, mostly in Wakayama Prefecture, and it's named after an Edo period charcoal seller in Tanabe called Bichu ya Chozaemon. The wood is carbonized slowly, then the kiln is brought to around 1,000 degrees, and the glowing charcoal is pulled out and smothered in a mix of ash and sand. That last step is where the pale coating and the name white charcoal come from. It ends up dense enough that 2 pieces ring like metal when you tap them together. In a jug of tap water, it softens the chlorine taste over a few hours. In the fridge, it takes the edge off odors. In a drawer or a pair of shoes, it does the same. 1 stick lasts months. Boil it for 10 minutes every few weeks and it comes back. The limit, stated plainly. It changes how water tastes, not whether it's safe. It is not a filter, and it will not fix questionable water. And when it finally stops working, it goes into a plant pot rather than the bin, which is the Zokin idea again, showing up in a completely different material. Use the thing all the way to the end, then find it a last job. Now walk to your front door and look at the floor. Whatever happened today is probably sitting there. Shoes, a bag, a parcel, a coat over the newel post. In most Western homes, the entryway is a corridor with a door at the end of it, and the day walks straight through it and all the way to the sofa. A Genkan is a sunken step just inside the entrance where shoes come off, paired with a getabako, a closed shoe cupboard, right there at the threshold. The step is usually only a few inches, and those few inches are doing the work. You physically rise into the house. Outside stops at a line you can see. The reason this is on a list about mental clutter and not a list about shoe storage is that the object is really a transition. A house with a marked threshold gives you a moment where one mode ends and another begins, and that moment costs nothing and takes 2 seconds. A house without one asks you to make that switch somewhere vaguer, usually not at all, which is why people describe bringing work home as a feeling rather than an event. You don't need to renovate. A closed cupboard rather than an open rack, a mat that visibly marks the line, and a rule that nothing lives on the floor past it. The line is the item. Now, the one I said isn't really about the object. A Shiki-buton is a thick cotton mattress laid directly on the floor. Its partner is the oshie, a deep closet built to hold it. Every morning the bedding is folded and put away. Every evening it comes back out. The bed frame, the box spring, the permanent rectangle in the middle of the room, none of it exists. And the consequence isn't about sleep at all. Consider what a bed actually is. It's the largest single-use object most people own, and it holds the largest single-use room in the house. If you live in a one-bedroom flat, your biggest room is unavailable to you for the 16 hours a day you're awake. People are working at kitchen tables 3 feet from a bed they can't use, in a home where the most spacious surface is off-limits by design. Put the bedding in a cupboard, and that room becomes floor. You can work in it, exercise in it, let children play in it, put a folding table in it, and eat in it. But this one carries a real cost, and you should hear it before you're persuaded. Bedding on a floor doesn't breathe underneath. Moisture from your body goes down into it overnight with nowhere to go, so it has to be folded and aired regularly. And if you skip that in a humid climate for long enough, you will get mold. That isn't an edge case, it's the standard failure. It's a daily task in exchange for a daily benefit, and if you know you won't do the task, don't take the trade. The other limit is honest and physical. Getting down to floor level and back up again every morning is fine at 30, and often isn't at 70. Which brings us to the last one, and the best idea on the list. A kotatsu is a low table with a heating element fixed under the tabletop, and a heavy quilt sandwiched between the top and the frame. You sit on the floor with your legs underneath, and the heat stays inside that small enclosed space, instead of escaping into the room. The principle is the strongest thing here. Heat the person, not the volume of air around the person. A room is almost entirely empty space. Warming all of it to warm one body is enormous waste, and we do it constantly, because our houses are built around the assumption that the room is the unit. It came from a specific problem. Traditional Japanese houses were built for humid summers. Thin walls, little insulation, no central heating. In a house like that, you heat the pocket where the family sits and accept that the corridor is cold. And the effect people who grew up with one actually talk about isn't warmth, it's gravity. Everyone ends up at the same table, because that's where it's warm. The heating decides where the family is. Whether you want the object depends on your house. If yours is well insulated and you sit on chairs, you'd be buying floor-level furniture to solve something your walls already solved. But the principle scales down to almost nothing. A heated throw over your lap costs a fraction of what running central heating for the same hour costs. A hot water bottle under a desk. A heated cushion on the chair you already sit in. Warm the body, not the building. And if you want the other half of it, put the warm thing where you'd like people to gather. Look back across the 10, and the same 3 ideas keep surfacing. One object doing several jobs, so you need fewer objects. Things that fold away, so space becomes something you borrow when you need it, rather than surrender permanently. And fewer objects meaning fewer open decisions, which is the part that actually shows up in your head rather than on your floor. Removing what you already own is difficult. Not acquiring it is nearly free, and it's a completely different set of habits.